My name is Donovan. I do this presentation with Nick. We have the chapter A Short History. In the 15th century, the richest countries in Europe wanted new routes to Asia because they wanted to trade or sell there with other countries and become more richer. King Ferdinand and Queen Elizabeth of Spain sent the explorers to discover new lands and water routes for the ships to Asia. One on one of these ships was a man, Christopher Columbus. He arrived in the Bahamas Island south of East Florida on October 12, 1492, where he found people who tied their hair, bodies, and had fur. He called those people Indians because he thought that he was in. For 100 years they were still called Indians, but now they called Native Americans. 7 years later, a man called Amerigo Vespucci sailed north and discovered America. In 1609, a man called Henry Hudson sailed a river that's now called the Hudson River in New York City. He worked for a Dutch trading company, the the they called it the Dutch East Indian Company, and soon after they settled, the the Europeans were in Africa. They collected slaves there to work on plant sugar plantains, coffee plantains, and tobacco plantains. More than 10 million Africans have traveled to America over 300 years. 102 people has gone north. They called the Pilgrims because they were having a free religious, but it was very hard for them. There there was a cold and there were very many wild animals. Many died, but they were having a better life than in Europe. The first year, the Native Americans were very happy with the English settlers because they were helping each other, teaching them how to grow their food and how to collect meat from animals and use their fur for clothes, and plants for medicines. But their relationship changed when there came more settlers and they took more land. In 1624, the Dutch settled New Amsterdam to the river the Hudson. Later, the English king gave his nephew the order to conquer New Amsterdam, and his nephew won. Then the city has a new name, New York. England was in the 18th century the richest country of the world. They had 13 colonies, were later states. In December 1737, about 100 people thought to show what they thought of the tax on tea. They went to Boston Harbor that night. They were dressed as Native Americans and threw all the tea in the water. This event was known as the Boston Tea Party. The king closed the harbor and was preparing a war. The settlers were preparing a war against England. A colonist named Thomas Jefferson wrote a well-known document known as Declaration of Independence. Jefferson wrote, "All men are right," and he wrote, "People rights to live free and happy." People on horses took the document and brought it to other colonies to make people read. It it was now King George was ang it was then that King George was angrier than ever. At Leicester he sent more soldiers with guns to New York. General George Washington and his army of colonists were waiting for him. The French and the Spaniards were on Washington's side. The long American War of Independence against Britain. Many people who died in the War of Independence, but the war ended and a new country was born, the United States of America.
Slaves were brought from North America to South America to work there on the farms. Slavery stopped when the war came. The American Civil War. 1865, slaves were free, but they didn't have the equal rights. Life for the Native Americans was bad. Many Native Americans died to protect their land and families. Native Americans were losing the war, and the government moved the Native Americans to a place where all Native Americans could be, so that they had their own land. When they were moved, many Native Americans died as well, due to no food and cold weather. When General George Custer and the army arrived at Little Big Horn on June 25, 1876, and was sitting with 200 or 300 tribesmen, that day were 267 soldiers killed, including General George Custer. On 15 December 1890, the Sitting Bull was killed when the police were trying to get the Sitting Bull to the prison. 2 weeks later, the U.S. Army went to Wounded Knee and killed 150 Lakota men, women, and children. The U.S. has always been a country that had a lot of immigration. After the Civil War, a lot of people had left their homes. The East moved to the West because the country was a lot cheaper. There are also people coming from Europe to USA. Very many people wanted to live the American dream. In October 1929, US had financial problems. The dollar crashed. The year after 1929 is called the Great Depression, which left many people without money, jobs, home, or food. In 1933, millions of people didn't have a job, and they all wanted a new president. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He said he was going to help people find a job. He spent a lot of money to rebuild the country. By rebuilding up the land, many people already had a job, such as making airports, school, and roads. Many people were no longer colonists. They were Americans. Some colonists who didn't want to become independent, they were fighting against the British Army. In 1787, George Washington and other important leaders wrote the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution stated that the government wasn't democracy. George Washington was the first president, and John Adams was his first vice president. The USA was getting bigger because they bought more land and had gained land by war.